This week we're participating in a model exchange. Roll the music. Hello and welcome to yet another Scuffed Hammer video. My name is Hammer and today we're participating in a model exchange. Now, this was all the idea of Mike over at Flashing Badger Painting. He did an amazing job of setting this all up and graciously allowed me and others to film the process and make their own videos. So, why don't I let him explain it to you and then we'll jump straight into painting.
What if I was to tell you that 22 other painters will also be painting their very own models and capturing some of the chaos along the way? That's right, for you see, in the channel Discord, we've been running a painting program of a Secret Santa, which we've named the Painting Platypus Palooza. I know, I don't get it either. But all of the mysteries are revealed today, where I'll be painting the model for my clandestine buddy, but we also get to check in around the globe and see what everyone else has been painting as well. You are going to see some awe-inspiring painted minis today, plus an unhealthy amount of Tim Tams that are earning frequent flyer points across the globe.
Cheers for that one, Mike. I'll be painting up this Reaver Lieutenant for WJT86, also known as Will's Warforge on Instagram, where he posts amazing photos of amazing models. I might just have my work cut out for me here. I'm gonna do my best to live up to the standard that Will has so that he doesn't feel ashamed to show it as part of his army. Now that's going to require using a bunch of new techniques, a bunch of new paints, and a whole lot of determination. I, like many others, chose this model in particular because it's one that I've been wanting to paint for ages, but could not justify buying because it just did not fit within my army. I really didn't want to have to tackle regular faces, and from the looks of it, Will doesn't have many faces in his army, so luckily I had a leftover Reaver head from when I built my squad years ago, and it was the perfect small kit bash for this model. Apart from that small change, the rest of the model is stock standard and no changes have been made. Once the model's been built, it's time for the airbrush. Starting off with a black primer from Army Painter. I make sure to get it from all angles, up, down, sideways, the whole shebang, repeating the steps on the base. Next, I'll be putting down some heavy metal on the model so it has a silver base that I can build up from, rather than starting at the pure black of the base coat. Then, to replicate the sandy wasteland that Will has on his bases, I used a sand color I had laying around and hit it over the entire base. Then, to rust up the metal, I got out a rust color and did the same on the metal section. Now, usually I leave the bases till last, but I was just in the mood to do them. So I went over the metal with some rust effects to make it all grimy and gritty like real rust would be. After that, I went in and hit some of the cracks and crevices with some dirty down yellow rust, making sure to remove or add more as it went along. I tried to mainly focus on sections that would be the most exposed or collect the most water on the off chance it did rain. I then went around and used little bits of teal in little pockets that were the deepest and along the edges that were the deepest as well, making sure to remove the excess to get that real rust effect. Moving on from the metal, I got some more bony, sandy colors and decided to dry brush the rocks just so that they were very different to the undercoating of the base. Then I went over the base with some Agrellan Earth texture paint, making sure to stay off the edges of the metal and not covering over the rocks. While the Agrellan Earth was still drying, I decided to get out some dry grass tufts and put them in place so I didn't need to use super glue. I used one big one small one, and placed it near the rocks to make it look a bit more natural. Now onto the actual model itself. I'm starting off with some Grim Black speed paint. This is my first time ever using speed paint, so we'll see how it works out. I'm copying a technique I've seen online from a few places, but mainly Jay from Eons of Battle, where you start off with a metal undercoat and then use a dark or even a colourful speed paint over the top of the metal undercoat, so it looks like the colour has a metallic sheen to it. The main reason I'm testing this out is because Will has a very similar painting style that I want to aim for my homebrew army. So by painting this model, I can test out the ideas I've been meaning to try for ages and see how they work and how I can further refine them. Maybe one day they'll make it off the page of my extensive homebrew codex and actually onto the tabletop. To replicate the weathering effect that Will has on pretty much all of his models, I've torn off a bit of sponge from a piece of packaging and used the same metal colour for the undercoat, making sure to get all over the pieces of armour that I want to keep black. Then for the leather, I'm using a lighter, more earthy brown than I usually use for my models, just to replicate the lighter colour of leather that Will uses in his army. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a massive fan of this colour brown. I might start using it in my army. Maybe I'll just use it as a highlight when I feel confident enough that my shaky hands won't mess highlighting up. Now that the major colours are out of the way, it's time for some of the smaller touches. For details like the skull and crossbone and even the circle in the middle of the belt and the helmet, I like to use a wraith bone instead of a pure white, mainly because it just always ends up looking better. Since the entire model is pretty much black, I can't really do the under armour black as well. So instead, I use a bit of Skaven Blight Dinge, which is a grey colour, just to add a bit of difference in there and break up the monotony of the black. Now to add a bit of character to the model. From Will's reference images, I can see that he typically does either 3rd or 8th company. So I wanted to do something a little different. I did think about 9th company, but somebody from the Discord already paints a bunch of 9th, so I decided to go with 7th instead. Once the purple details of the 7th company has been added, it's time to add a little bit of rattling grime, just to dirty up any of the silver that's still poking through, so it doesn't look so bright compared to the rest of the model. Then to remove some of the flatness and add a little bit of gloss to the under armour, I'll use a little bit of Agrax Earthshade. Then for a smaller detail, just to get the eyes just right, I'll use a little bit of Tesseract Glow, as it will make it look like it's indeed glowing. Then I'll apply my favourite way to do blood. First, a little bit of Army Painter's dry blood, and then to make sure the edges of it still look wet and grimy, I'll use a little bit of Blood for the Blood God from Citadel Painting. After that, it's time for the final details, which is all of the gold trim. And Retributor armor is very quickly becoming my favourite gold colour. If there are any true metallic gold paints you think I should try, drop them down below and let me know what I'm missing out on. Now that all the paint is on and dried, it's time to snap it off the painting stick and glue it down onto the base. For some reason this was a little bit tricky and it took a few attempts, but it got there, and now it's time for the final reveal. Well, that just about wraps us up for today's video. I had a blast participating in the Painting Platypus Palooza. You have no idea how many tries it took me to get that right. I hope you enjoy your model, Will, and if you're wondering what models I got, I'll throw them up on screen for you. Thanks to Jesse or Errant Role Model for that one. A massive thanks to Mike over at Flashing Badger Painting. It was a blast. Please do me a favor, check out Mike's video, which should be attached right up there, and give him some love. Don't forget to join our Discord, where there is an awesome community we're trying to grow. And while you're over at Mike's video, why don't you join his, where every now and again you'll get to see a few sneak peeks of models when I'm participating in the painting competition he runs every 2 months. Another awesome thanks to Mike. That's the end of the video, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.